Tonight on the Tiny Build Games YouTube channel, join us as we dive back into the history of the Hello Neighbor alphas and prepare you for a special Hello Neighbor event. Let's see what you remember from the development of Hello Neighbor and take you behind the scenes as to what went on in developing the game. Now, let's move into the neighborhood. Hey, what's up everyone? I hope you're doing well today. Welcome to the Tiny Build Games YouTube channel. My name is Adam, and you might recognize me as the narrator for Secret Neighborhood News, Tiny Build's Tiny Tips, and What's New in Hello Neighbor 2. And as you can probably tell, this video is a little bit different. There's a reason why. You see, while we're waiting for news on Hello Neighbor 2 and the Christmas update for Secret Neighbor, Tiny Build has a special event planned for you, for fans of Hello Neighbor, and for people who are curious about Raven Brooks, or for people who are just experiencing Hello Neighbor for the first time and are just meeting the neighbor. So, you might be wondering, why are there so many alphas? And if you look at the stores, you will see things such as Hello Neighbor, then Hello Neighbor Alpha 1, Alpha 2, Alpha 4 even. And you might ask, why are there so many alphas? Well, how is each one different? What's an alpha? Well, don't worry. To answer one of these questions, an alpha is an early access version of the game. The game is not complete, and it's, for the most part, not for sale. An alpha is created to test various aspects of game design. Sometimes alphas are released to the public, and sometimes alphas are released privately for a select group of people to play test and give feedback. Now, for the most part, alphas will have bugs, and some parts will be missing. But for the most part, it's playable. So now you're wondering, why were there so many alphas in Hello Neighbor's development? And how are they all different? Well, to answer that question, and to prepare you for the special event planned, which I will reveal in the middle of this video, follow me as we dive into the history of Raven Brooks and the development of Hello Neighbor. And I will take you from concept to finished product on the evolution of Hello Neighbor. So let's begin with the pre-alpha. Like most games, Hello Neighbor began as a concept. A player is suspicious of his neighbor and must break into the neighbor's house and uncover the secret hidden in his basement. You might recognize this idea of a suspicious neighbor from such films as Rear Window, Disturbia, Fright Night, Summer of '84, and The Burbs. Well, to test this concept, this pre-alpha version of Hello Neighbor was made. It was never intended to be released to the public though. The focus was merely to test the game loop. The game loop was that the player would unlock the basement by acquiring items through solving puzzles, all while avoiding the neighbor. If the player is caught, he restarts across the street, and the game continues. In this stage of development, the neighbor only had a few habits, such as watching television, sleeping, and walking around the house. To throw off the player and add a little bit of a challenge, he would place security cameras and traps in areas the player was known to frequently visit, or place a trap in the exact spot the player was caught. And he would use chairs to barricade the doors and set up buckets filled with water to help him be aware of the player's presence. But when players opened the basement door, nothing really happened. An ending wasn't really designed yet because the focus was testing the game loop. Alpha 1 is where the game begins to evolve and gets larger in scope. The game received updated graphics, new models, and better lighting. An intro scene was added to the game, along with a brief tutorial that showed people the basic controls of the game. To expand upon the game and add replayability, additional puzzles were added that could be completed in different ways. This alpha was the first time common elements of the Hello Neighbor franchise were introduced, such as the mannequins, a railway carriage, a toy gun, and a robot shark. As for the neighbor, he received an upgrade. He got smarter, could understand the presence of the player, knock down doors, and remember the locations of objects. In this game's ending though, the player receives an ending screen and a small cutscene when they open the basement door. Alpha 2 is when the neighbor's house began to take on its own identity. The basic outline of the house that players are familiar with was developed in this alpha, and the game began to solidify its own art style, with a new look for all objects, and the lighting was improved. For player reworks, players could see their hands for the first time, and had a body and character. The tutorial was upgraded with intro cutscenes showing elements of the plot, and it felt like a film. This alpha was also where the musical theme for Hello Neighbor was introduced, and would later form the basis for the entire soundtrack. As for this alpha's game loop, this version returned a little bit more to the pre-alpha, in that it had more realistic puzzles and settings. The ending this time was a little more fleshed out and expanded upon. The players get into the basement and can explore a little bit until they reach a mysterious door. But the game doesn't allow the player to advance beyond this door, and ends as soon as the player tries to open it. That is until Alpha 3. Now before we look at Alpha 3, I want to show you all next week's event. I think you're really going to enjoy it.
Hello, my name is Nikita, and I'm the creator of the Hello Neighbor franchise.
And my name's Ari, I'm the community manager for Neighbor Games.
Next week on December 17th, we'll be live streaming the Hello Neighbor alphas and answering your questions. Let's chat.
And if you have any questions that you would like answered during this stream, please write them in the YouTube comments or feel free to share them in our Discord server, which is discord.gg/neighborgames. Now let's continue with our behind-the-scenes look at Alpha 3.
You'll probably notice large differences between Alpha 3 and every other alpha we've seen so far. It's always night in this version, but there's a few reasons why. During this time in the game's development, the day-night cycle, save system, and AI algorithms for the neighbor and how they would catch the player were in reworks at the moment and not ready for public playtesting. The environment design was also unfinished. So in order to immerse the player while hiding these unfinished assets that could be distracting to the player experience, the Alpha 3 was made dark on purpose. And to add a little style to the dark environment, lightning and thunder were added. These game design decisions became the inspiration for Act 3 in the final version of the game. What also made its way from Alpha 3 into the final version was the design for the neighbor's house. You might notice the railway is back, but it's not operational. And Alpha 3 also marked significant changes to the neighbor's behavior. For example, the neighbor stopped setting traps whenever the player would fail, and instead placed traps when the player escaped. The setting of traps would also occur in real time and not just when the player respawned after getting captured. The neighbor would also react to the player's flashlight. And tomatoes and traps that the neighbor threw in previous alphas were replaced with cans of glue that he now threw in front of the player in an attempt to slow them down. For this version's ending, the primary antagonist, the Thing, was introduced for the first time. When players open the basement, they see the neighbor crying in a cutscene. But in order to see all of the elements of the ending and understand what was going on with the neighbor, they had to carefully study the location without approaching the neighbor. And in doing so, they eventually see the Thing. The final alpha, or Alpha 4 of the game, solidified the neighbor's house and the map, and that they're pretty much what you see in the full release of the game. At this point, the day and night cycle have returned, and the railway is now functional and players could ride on the cart. And the mannequins received their official look that you're now familiar with in Hello Neighbor and Secret Neighbor. There were two significant features to this alpha though. The first was how it introduced the language of Hello Neighbor. What do I mean by language? Well, the text in Hello Neighbor was at first Cyrillic, and then would later change to the Latin alphabet. The other piece of culture was the Metroidvania style of game design. Metroidvania style games are what you would see in the Metroid series and Castlevania Symphony of Night. For Hello Neighbor, you could see this in the vertical design of the level, which could be traveled with the help of a flying umbrella. But staying true to the Metroidvania style, certain parts are blocked off, requiring tools, weapons, and abilities to pass. This is seen in Alpha 4's new Fear Rooms, and how players would have to collect abilities in each room in order to defeat the Dark One, who awaited players in the basement. As time passed, players eventually learned how to reach the ending with just using one ability. For Alpha 4's finale, we finally see what happens to Nicky. He receives an eviction notice, packs his belongings, and returns to Raven Brooks. Now that you've seen all of the alphas and what went into their development, you're likely thinking Hello Neighbor 2 is going to receive additional updates. And you're right, it is. But I want to ask you, what would you like changed or tested in the next alpha? If you'd like to give feedback on the recent Hello Neighbor 2 Alpha 1.5, you can do so by filling out this survey. And if you haven't played Hello Neighbor 2 yet, you can play the game for free on Steam and the Microsoft Store. It takes place right after the events of the first Hello Neighbor. And by playing the game and providing feedback, you are becoming a part of history and the development of Hello Neighbor 2. So there you have it, the evolution of Hello Neighbor, from concept to finished product. I hope you enjoyed this video. Now, if you have any questions for Nikita in his live stream next week, be sure to write them in the YouTube comments below and in the Discord server. We'll choose several of them for Nikita to answer during the live stream. And also do me a favor while you're here. If you enjoyed this video, leave it a like. Write a comment and write a question for Nikita, or just write a question in general about the video. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the Tiny Build Games YouTube channel for more videos like this one and various upcoming videos soon to be announced. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you next week in the live stream with Ari and Nikita. I'll see you then. Have a good day, Ravenbrooks, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.